Let's play Lord of the Rings Adventure to Mount Doom. This video is intended to help you remember how to play by playing along as you watch the video. So get out your game and we'll go through the setup. Place the main board out in the middle of the game area. Place the 5 fellowship standees in Rivendell. Place the Uruk-hai chieftain in his space at the top of Isengard and the 5 warrior standees to the left of the board. Place the Witch King on the space right underneath Minas Morgul and the 8 Nazgul figure standees to the right of the board. Shuffle the 5 Gandalf cards and place them in a face-down stack. Now the game can be challenging, so I'll give you some hints about how you can make it a little bit easier to play. I'll give you an easy mode and a story mode. These are not official game rules, they're just some ideas that I found helpful in playing the game. If you want to play an easier version of the game, remove the Gandalf Vision card first, and we'll explain why in a minute. The oldest player will be the starting player. They take the top card off the Gandalf stack and put it next to the board. It is now part of the fellowship and can be used during the game. The encounter cards are separated according to areas on the game that you'll travel through. There is one Rivendell card, and then there's stacks of cards for the other areas. So first, separate the cards according to their area. Now flip over the Rivendell card. It is the Boromir friend card, and you will start the game with this. Now you'll have 6 stacks of 7 cards. If you're playing the easy version, then we will remove one of the more difficult cards from each of the stacks. For the easier version, you'll remove the Balrog of Moria from the Lothlorien stack. You'll remove the Uruk-hai from Rohan, Grima Wormtongue from Helm's Deep, Sauron's Eye from Gondor, Sauron's Mouth from Minas Morgul, and the One Ring's Power from Mount Doom. This means that each of the stacks only has 6 cards, so that's why we've removed Gandalf's Vision, because in Gandalf's Vision you take the top card and you can get rid of it, remove it from the game, and so that's not going to be useful if you've gone with the easier version of the game. You'll put the stacks in order that you visit the areas in the game. To remember that order, just trace the path on the map of the game board. Whenever you reach the end of stage, at the end of that turn, you'll prepare for the next stage. And at the beginning of setup, we'll set up that stage for Lothlorien. At the bottom of the board are 6 spaces that are called the encounter track. If you're playing with the easy rules, there will be 6 cards in each stack, and so they will fit exactly on the encounter track. But if you're playing with the standard rules, there will be 7 cards in each stack, and so only 6 of them will be placed on the encounter track. The other one will be placed back into the box and won't be used during the game. Every time you set up for the next stage, you'll place the cards in space 1 and space 6 face down, and the cards in spaces 2 through 5 face up. So we'll do that now with Lothlorien. Put the dice board and the dice to the side of the game board. There's a track on the left side of the board that goes from a dark heart to a light heart and is called the Courage track. Place the One Ring token over the One Ring spot, and also put the Treebeard and Gandalf tokens to the side of the board. Place the reference cards to the side of the board for easy access. Now you've completed the official setup and are ready to play the game. There's one more step that you might want to consider if you want to play an easier version. As we mentioned, for the easy version, you can remove a number of cards. You could create a little card to show you which of those cards to remove. Also, during normal gameplay, you will play different cards as you take your turn. So you can create similar type of cards for a story type of mode. I've done this by calling 3 of them Hope, and you gain the number of hearts shown here, like 5, 10, and 10. And then also I have an Escape card where I removed 3 Nazgul. So these would be used just like the Gandalf and Friendship cards so that they can be activated at any time during the game. So the goal during the game is to travel all the way from Rivendell to Mount Doom. You lose the game if your Courage token ever has to go below the last space, or the last Nazgul is placed on the board. However, you win if you reach Mount Doom before either of those two things happen. When you reach Mount Doom, you cast the ring into Mount Doom. The basic mechanic of the game is you roll dice to move along the track and activate encounters. The basic strategy of the game is to keep most of the fellowship ahead of the ring bearer so that they can protect the ring bearer. In addition, you want the fellowship members to arrive at locations by exact count to gain rewards. And you want to avoid spaces that have a heart on it, which means that you lose courage, and spaces that have Nazgul, which means that you have to place another Nazgul on the board. Now let's talk about the basic turn. Make sure that you reference the turn overview reference card as you play the game. In this game, players don't play individual characters, but instead they control the entire fellowship. As a result, each player will play a full turn of rolling the dice and doing the encounter and movement actions. Then it's the next player's turn. So for a solo game, you just perform all the actions for the fellowship for each turn. So the first thing that we'll do is we will roll 4 dice, 2 black encounter dice and any 2 multicolored fellowship dice. Now typically, because you're wanting the ring bearer to be protected, you'll typically roll the orange die last, and so you'll pick a color of one of the different colors to move the other members forward. Now, after you've rolled the dice, you don't actually move at that point. You are instead going to select one of the encounter dice and one of the fellowship dice to put into the book on the left-hand side. Now, which encounter die we choose to use depends upon what cards are at each of the encounter spaces. If you look at the encounter cards, some of them have a green symbol, which is a friend card, and the red symbol is an adversary card. Each card describes on the bottom how it behaves. And the very back of the rule book on page 8 describes in detail some of these encounter cards. But the most simple rule of thumb is we like the friend cards and not the adversary cards. So if we had rolled a 5 and a 4 for the encounter dice, we definitely want to choose the 5 and place it in the upper left black spot. Now we have to decide which fellowship die to choose. So we choose the die that gets us the most progress but doesn't land on one of these dangerous spots or pass the location that we're going towards right now. In this particular case, the green 1 and the red 5 put the fellowship in safe spaces, but the 5 moves Gimli further along, so that's the one we should choose. So we just place that die at the bottom of the left side of the board. In step 2, we take the remaining encounter die and the remaining fellowship die and add one more fellowship die. Then we roll those 3 dice. Now for the encounter die, we have to take whatever's rolled and place it up on the right-hand side of that black space. But for the fellowship die, we can choose whichever one gives us the greatest advantage. And we place that in the bottom right side of the dice board. Now we use the die to perform our actions. So one easy way to do that is to remove the die from the dice board, but keep the face up so that we can remember what it is, to know which die we have already acted upon. So in this particular case, we always start at the top left and go down, and then we go next to the top right and go down. So the first encounter is a value 5. And we have a friend card, and we will activate that card. Now, whenever we have a friend card and activate it, we just remove it from the bottom of the encounter deck. The encounter track. Now, you'll notice that when you remove a card, there's some symbols underneath it here. And so, for example, at space 5, this allows you in future, if I roll 5 again, then the fellowship can move either 0, 1, or 2, the blue character. Now, activating a friend card is not the same as using it. Activating it just means you pull it over to your side so you can use it later. So any of the players can use this card during their turn. But you're not required to use it right away. Friend cards can only be used once during the game, so after they're used, they need to be discarded. After doing the encounter die, we take the fellowship die and move the fellowship character matching that color, the number of spaces. So for example, Gimli moves 5 spaces. Then we go to the next encounter die. In this case it's a 5, and so the blue character, Aragorn, can move 0, 1, or 2 spaces, and the players choose. And finally we take the last fellowship die and move it according to the number of spaces there. So in this case, Merry and Pippin move 5. Now, whenever we're using the fellowship die in order to move the characters, they must move that full number of spaces. So you may sometimes land on spaces that you don't like. Now, the only exception to that is that if you move the ring bearer. If the ring bearer would move past a location, they stop at the location. And that will result in an end of stage where you reset up the cards. So once the ring bearer reaches Lothlorien, at the end of that turn, I will set up all the encounter cards at the bottom of the board to be for the Rohan stage. Now let's talk about battles. A number of the encounter cards have the crossed sword and axe, and that means that a battle will ensue. Now we'll talk about how the battle works, but notice here that the consequences of losing the battle are shown on the cards. So for example, if I'm fighting the Moria Orc and I lose the battle, I will lose 1 courage or 1 heart. If I fight the Cave Troll and I will lose 2 hearts or 2 courage. And that means that you will move the ring token down for each heart that you are to lose. So how does the battle work? Whenever we have a battle, we roll the battle dice and resolve its effects. If we ever roll the Sauron symbol, we lose automatically. If we roll the Gandalf symbol, we win if we discard a Gandalf card. Otherwise, we lose. The other 4 sides of the die represent the fellowship members except for the ring bearer. They have colors and symbols that match them. Now, if the symbol matches a fellowship member that is behind Sam and Frodo, you lose. Or if that character is beyond the next destination, you lose. But if that fellowship member is between Sam and Frodo, including on that space, and the destination you're moving to, again, including on that destination space, then you win. So in this particular example, if I roll the symbol for Legolas or Gimli, I will lose, but if I roll the symbol for Merry and Pippin or Aragorn, I win. Now, as we mentioned earlier, these cards on spaces 1 and 6 are placed face down, so there's a little bit of risk determining whether you want to use one of those encounter dice because you don't know what's on the other side of the card. It could be an adversary or a friend. Now, some of the adversary cards have this card symbol with a little arrow at the bottom right. That means after you perform the action, you remove the card from the game. Just like when you remove a friend card, removing the adversary card can reveal a symbol underneath it. And notice that space 6 has a Nazgul, and that means that if you roll or an encounter 6 in the future, then you will have to place a new Nazgul on the board. Let's now talk a little bit about arriving at destinations. We've already mentioned that Sam and Frodo cannot go past a destination on their particular turn. But the other fellowship characters can. If they rolled, for example, if Merry and Pippin were here, if they rolled a 1, they would land by exact count. But if they rolled 2, they would go past. You have to move its full movement space. Whenever Sam and Frodo reach a destination by exact count, they can draw a Gandalf card from the top of the Gandalf stack. There is one exception to this. When they reach Minas Morgul, you can no longer gain a Gandalf card. That's because Sauron's power is too great. Whenever a regular fellowship character reaches a destination by exact count, then you can increase the courage by moving the ring token up 1 space on the courage track. The Gandalf token is used if you encounter the Balrog on Lothlorien, and that doesn't happen if you're using the easy level approach. However, if you use this card in normal gameplay, you'll place the Gandalf token in this location, and that means that you cannot use Gandalf cards until you reach Helm's Deep. The Treebeard token can be used if you encounter Treebeard card on the way to Gondor. However, you do not need to use the Treebeard token. There are two options on the Treebeard card, and one is you can gain 2 hearts or 2 courage. The other one is that you can place the Treebeard token up here in Isengard, and then every time you have a battle that you win in Isengard, you remove one of the Uruk-hai, and ultimately remove their chieftain. The Nazgul and loss of courage symbols are activated when the first character lands on them. So for example, if Merry and Pippin are moving and they land on the Nazgul space, they do not have to put a Nazgul on there because there's already another character, Gimli, there. Similarly, if they had landed on the loss of courage space here, they do not have to lose courage because Aragorn is already there. If, however, Aragorn has moved off that space and there is no character on the loss of courage space, if Merry and Pippin land there, then they will have to lose courage. So now might be a good time to pause the video and practice the stages and all the things that we've described, trying to move from Rivendell to Lothlorien. Practice it until you feel comfortable with the mechanics. The final stage from Minas Morgul to Mount Doom has 2 parts that we need to kind of discuss. So the first one is any Fellowship character whose movement would take them past Minas Morgul, except for the Ring Bearer, is moved into this waiting spot over here. So in this case, Legolas and Aragorn are moved to the waiting spot. And now let's talk about the turn in which the ring bearer reaches Minas Morgul. So in this particular case, the die roll would take the ring bearer past Minas Morgul, but just like for every other stage, they stop at that final location. And then we see that Merry and Pippin would land on Minas Morgul by exact count. Gimli, on the other hand, does not reach Minas Morgul, and so you just leave him there. Now, in this last stage, the ring bearer has to go alone. But any Fellowship character that reached Minas Morgul by exact count allows the ring bearer to move 1 space. So Merry and Pippin were able to reach it by exact count. So Frodo and Sam move forward 1 space. If Aragorn and Legolas had also reached it by exact count, then the ring bearer could move 2 more spaces. However, since they did not, that's why they're in the waiting area. For the rest of the game, the other Fellowship characters are no longer used, so you can leave them where they are, move them to the waiting space, or remove them from the board for clarity. In addition, the dice board's not used anymore, nor are the Fellowship dice or the battle dice, and only 1 encounter die is used. The encounter track is set up just like any other stage. But what happens now is each turn you'll roll the encounter dice, then activate each encounter. And then after each encounter is activated and resolved, you move the ring bearer, Sam and Frodo, 1 space closer to Mount Doom. The one exception is the Shelob encounter, in which case the ring bearer does not move during that turn. Note that the encounter is always resolved first before the ring bearer is moved. You win the game when Sam and Frodo finally reach that orange circle in Mount Doom, and you can take the ring token and throw it into the crater. Okay, now it's your turn to try to travel to Mount Doom and save Middle-earth by throwing the ring into the crater. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it's helped you learn how to play or remember how to play Lord of the Rings Adventure to Mount Doom. Enjoy playing the game.